Think about those pairs that just go together in people's minds, like salt and pepper, maybe. For ages, India-Pakistan felt like one of those. This, like, inseparable duo in global discussions, always mentioned together. It felt like the world had this, I don't know, mental shortcut for South Asia.
Yeah, kind of shorthand.
Exactly. And then, sort of out of nowhere, the script changes. Not because of some big treaty, but just a casual comment.
Right. Donald Trump saying he thought India and Pakistan were, what was it, equally great nations? And he got along well with both.
Yeah, just like that.
And what's really interesting is how that one remark, probably pretty off the cuff, could potentially start to unravel this whole way of thinking that's been around for so long.
It's more than just grammar, isn't it? This hyphen.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just punctuation. It was a really embedded lens, a way the world looked at two incredibly complex, dynamic countries.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is kind of unpack that. Why did this hyphen exist? Why does it even matter if it's maybe possibly dissolving?
Exactly. And what could that mean, for both countries, for the region, and, well, maybe even for the rest of the world? It's a pretty big question, actually.
Okay, so this hyphen, it became this reflex, right? Link the two, especially when talking about, say, conflict or tension.
Yeah, precisely. The India-Pakistan thing became a very convenient, though, honestly, often misleading shortcut.
Misleading how?
Well, look, they share a history, a really intense one with partition in 1947.
Yeah.
That's undeniable and deeply traumatic.
Yeah.
But since then, their paths have gone in really, really different directions.
Okay.
You look at India over the last few decades, huge economic growth, right?
Yeah.
A massive tech sector. Bengaluru really is giving Silicon Valley a run for its money in some areas.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
And then there's the cultural influence. Bollywood's global reach. That's real soft power. It shapes perceptions way beyond South Asia.
For sure. When you see something like Natu Natu winning an Oscar, that's not small potatoes.
Not at all. Meanwhile, Pakistan's story, seen through that same hyphenated lens, often got, well, overshadowed. It was framed by its internal struggles, maybe economic or political, and almost always in relation to India.
So the hyphen kind of trapped the narrative for both, in a way.
You could definitely argue that. For India, it arguably held back its wider global ambitions. Every time India-Pakistan came up, boom, the conversation snapped back to Kashmir, to the rivalry.
Right.
It obscured India's other achievements, its potential role in, say, global tech or health. It's like, I don't know, like defining Apple only by its rivalry with Samsung. You miss the bigger picture.
Okay, that makes sense. It pigeonholed them. So this diplomatic duct tape, as one of our sources call it, where did it come from? Why stick it on so tight for so long?
Well, the history is key. Partition was seismic. It left scars, unresolved issues, Kashmir being the most obvious and persistent one. That fueled conflict, tension.
For generations.
Absolutely. And for the West, particularly during the Cold War and after, thinking of them as this single volatile unit, it was simpler, strategically.
Simpler how? Like easier to manage?
Sort of. It framed a really complex region into a more manageable narrative. The India-Pakistan problem, potential nuclear flashpoint. It maybe made South Asia seem a bit less daunting to deal with from afar.
So convenience trumped complexity.
In many ways, yes. But the reality on the ground kept changing, diverging more and more. Just look at the economics. India's GDP is, what, around $3.5 trillion now? Fifth largest economy in the world. Pakistan's economy is closer to $340 billion. Still significant, but a vastly different scale and trajectory. India's got these tech hubs. The space program Chandrayaan-3 landing on the moon was a huge moment.
Right.
Pakistan's journey has faced, well, different challenges, more instability at times.
It's like that analogy someone used, comparing a masala dosa and a samosa.
Yeah, I like that one. Both great, both South Asian, but fundamentally different things, right? You wouldn't just call them both Indian snacks and leave it at that.
So why did the hyphen hang on so long, despite these differences?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe Trump's comment, even accidentally, just threw a spotlight on how outdated that narrative had become.
By calling them separate, but equally great.
Exactly. It inadvertently acknowledged that, hey, these are two distinct places. And India, for its part, has been actively working to be seen as a major global player, building ties with the U.S., Japan, Europe, based on interests that go way beyond just Pakistan.
And Pakistan has its own ties.
Definitely. Key strategic alliances, very notably with China, and important relationships in the Middle East. The hyphen it couldn't contain those separate realities anymore.
Which brings us back to Trump. Was this comment, do you think, a calculated diplomatic shift? Or just Trump being Trump?
Knowing his style, probably the latter, wouldn't you say? His focus often seemed more transactional, about personal relationships, maybe immediate headlines, rather than deep, long-term strategic recalibration.
So more instinct than policy document.
Likely. Saying they're equally great, mentioning good relations, it fits his pattern. But intent isn't the same as impact, is it?
No, definitely not. And the reactions were apparently quite mixed. Some in India felt, wait, equal after all our progress, while maybe some in Pakistan saw it as a bit of rare equal footing recognition.
That's what the sources suggest, which is fascinating in itself. But the key thing, regardless of why he said it or how people felt about it, is that it might have just broken the spell. It disrupted that automatic hyphenated way of talking. It created this pause, maybe, for the world to think, hang on, does this still fit?
Okay, let's dig into India's side more. That 1991 liberalization always comes up. What actually happened then that set it on such a different course?
Oh, 91 was massive. It was a fundamental shift away from a more state-controlled, sort of socialist-inspired economy towards the global market.
Opening up.
Big time. Opening up to foreign investment, slashing a lot of the old bureaucracy, the license raj, as they called it, and really letting the private sector run.
And that unleashed potential.
Absolutely. You had this huge, young population, growing entrepreneurial energy, a skilled workforce. The reforms basically lit the fuse. The tech boom, the rising middle class, India getting more involved globally. A lot traces back to those changes.
You mentioned the Quad earlier, too. That's about positioning itself beyond the region, right? Countering China.
Precisely. It shows India seeing its strategic interests in a much broader Indo-Pacific context, not just confined to South Asia. And, yeah, the cultural power of Bollywood, that keeps projecting influence, too.
So this whole glow-up, as someone called it, the hyphen was kind of dragging on it, linking it back to Pakistan's very different situation.
I think that's a fair way to put it. It acted like a kind of anchor, perceptually. No matter how much India grew or changed its focus, that link often pulled the narrative back to the bilateral issues, especially Kashmir.
So Trump's comment, even if unintentional, might have helped sever that rhetorical link.
Potentially, yes. At least it offers a moment where India can be seen and judged more on its own terms. Its economic weight, its global role, its own strategic partnerships.
Okay, let's pivot to Pakistan. Obviously, it's faced some serious headwinds recently. Economic crises, political turbulence, those terrible floods.
Significant challenges, no doubt.
But our sources also point to its strategic importance, its location, CPEC. Could breaking the hyphen actually be an opportunity for Pakistan to reshape its own image?
It could be. I mean, look at a map. Pakistan sits right at this crucial crossroads, South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia. That geography alone gives it inherent strategic value.
And CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
Yeah, that's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Billions in infrastructure investment from China. Now, it comes with its own complexities, debt concerns, and so on. But the potential impact on connectivity and the economy is huge.
And Pakistan has its own strengths too, right? Beyond geopolitics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A really vibrant, diverse culture, a massive youth population with aspirations, and, let's not forget, huge passion for things like cricket, where they're a global force.
So the hyphen maybe limited Pakistan's narrative too, kept it focused on the India rivalry.
It often did. It defined Pakistan primarily through that lens. So yes, moving beyond the hyphen could be a chance for Pakistan to project a standalone identity. But to really seize that chance, it likely needs to tackle those internal issues of the economy, political stability. It needs to build a compelling narrative that isn't just about not being India or being in opposition to India.
Which inevitably brings us to Kashmir. We can't really talk about this without addressing it. It's been the core issue for so long. How does moving past the hyphen affect that?
Kashmir is central, absolutely. Root cause of wars, constant tension, and with both sides having nuclear weapons, it's always had global security implications. The hyphen basically kept Kashmir pinned to the top of the India-Pakistan agenda in the world's eyes.
Defying the whole relationship, almost.
To a large extent, yes. Trump's comment, focusing on separate greatness and good relations, implicitly kind of, downplays Kashmir as the only thing that matters in their dynamic. It subtly shifts the frame.
So if they're decoupled more in global perception, could that actually create space for maybe a different way to approach the Kashmir issue itself?
It's possible. It's a fragile hope, perhaps. But if the entire relationship isn't viewed only through the conflict lens, maybe, just maybe, it allows for conversations or confidence-building measures that were impossible before. Yeah. It might allow both countries to address it in a slightly less charged, less zero-sum context.
This must also change things for other global powers, right? Like the U.S., which has historically tried to do this balancing act between India and Pakistan.
Oh, definitely. That balancing act gets much trickier. If you keep equating India with Pakistan, especially given India's rise and its view of itself, you risk alienating Delhi. India increasingly expects to be treated as a major power in its own right.
And China's already heavily invested in Pakistan.
Exactly. China has significant leverage through CPEC and a long-standing strategic partnership. Then you have Russia engaging more with both. The whole geopolitical chessboard is shifting. The old playbook might not work anymore.
So new strategies needed, more tailored approaches to each.
Seems likely. For India, maybe the end of the hyphen clears the way to focus even more on its global ambitions, climate, tech, health, without that regional anchor, so to speak.
And for Pakistan?
It's a chance, as we said, to focus inward on economic recovery, maybe build more independent partnerships, and really define what its global role looks like separate from the India equation.
So really, Trump's comment, whatever the reason behind it, might have just cracked open the door to a whole new era, a post-hyphen world.
It feels like a potential inflection point, an opportunity for both nations to write their own distinct stories on the world stage.
And maybe a nudge for the rest of us to stop viewing South Asia just through that one narrow bilateral lens.
I think that's crucial. Engage with India as India, Pakistan as Pakistan. Recognize their complexities, their unique paths. It's overdue, probably.
It could allow both to, shine independently and maybe, down the line, find new ways to cooperate without the old baggage.
That would be the ideal outcome, wouldn't it? Moving beyond the weight of that historical hyphen.
A new narrative, indeed. Okay, let's leave our listeners with this to chew on. If this hyphen really is breaking or broken, what are the biggest factors, internal and external, that are going to shape where India and Pakistan go from here individually? And could we see surprising new partnerships or maybe even new rivalries emerge in this post-hyphen landscape? Lots to think about.